The first reading, the good news of Christ, is from the Gospel of John. Unless the grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains just a grain of wheat. But if it falls to the ground and dies, it produces much fruit. The second reading is the good news of Yogananda. Behind the light of every little ball is a great dynamic current. So it is with every human being. God made man in his image and gave each one freedom. The possibilities of this world are limitless. The potential progress of man is limitless. Don't look on yourself as a weak mortal. Incredible amounts of energy are hidden in your brain, enough in a gram of flesh to run the city of Chicago for 2 days. So if some of you would sacrifice some of your flesh, we could run this building free. And you say you're tired. As souls, we are reflections of God. When by meditation techniques we withdraw restless thoughts from the lake of the mind, we behold our soul, a perfect reflection of spirit, and realize that the soul and God are one. So we'll start with the prayer. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, friend, beloved God, reveal thyself to us. Reveal thyself to us so that we can know who we are. We know who we are in relationship to you. For we are in our deepest essence, your reflection, your image. You have poured your whole being, your whole self into us. Wake us up to our God-given greatness. Amen. So good evening. I'll start with a story from my 6th grade Catholic school days. I had a wonderful nun. She really was truly a wonderful nun. My sister Magnelso. And when I say she was somewhere between 85 and 90, I'm not exaggerating. She was old. In fact, it was the last class she ever taught was my 6th grade class. She didn't retire because of me. I just want you to know that. It was one of the little cute things about her. Her hearing wasn't good, but she would always tell us that she could hear the grass growing on the outside. Anyways, one day I got into some trouble. The trouble's not important. I just got into trouble. And it was after lunch, and I remember she took my face in her hand. You know, they make you look at them in their eye. And she said, "Who are you?" Now, when I'm saying she was, again, 85, pushing 90, I thought to myself, she's losing it. I said, "Sister, I'm Craig, your student." She said, "I know that, stupid." She said, "That's not what I'm asking you." And I said, "Well, what are you asking me? Who are you?" And again, and she said, "You're not going to get your life together, and you're not going to tap into your potential until you realize that you are God's child, made in God's image. Until then," she said, "you'll just make a mess of your life." Now, I didn't really understand what she was saying, but I knew it was important. So let's go ahead 20-something years. And I read the autobiography of a yogi. And one of Yogananda's key teachings, one of the essential pieces of Kriya Yoga, is the discovery of who we are. He called it self-realization. And being a psychotherapist, at first I thought, oh, he's talking about peeling back the layers of your psyche and understanding what's in your unconscious. That's the self, the psychological self he wants us to realize. And as I read more and more and studied more and more and meditated more and more on his teachings, I realized that's not what he's talking about. When Yogananda talks about self-realization and talks about it being one of the goals of the spiritual life, what he's saying is that we have to rediscover who we are. We are not our history, we are not our stories, we're not even our gender. I'm not saying that isn't important, but we're not our stories, we're not our gender, we're not our culture, we're not our ethnicity. We are the very image of God. That is our suchness, that is our essence. That is who we really are. And that's not a concept, it's not a theology, it's not a philosophical, psychological category. It is an experience. And the goal of the spiritual life is to rediscover, to remember, to recognize who we really are. We will not be able to live up to our potential. We will not be able to experience peace. We will not be able to unknot all the knots in the human condition until and unless we discover who we really are. So let me put it in a kind of context that makes sense. Most of you know that 18 months ago approximately I became a grandfather. And there's many joys about being a grandfather. But one of the things I'm remembering watching Noah, my grandson, is there's a natural innocence to him. He's wide-eyed. He makes eye contact with you. He's filled with wonder, curiosity, joy. He's innocent. He's pure. He's completely present and full of life. Not a coincidence that Jesus said, unless we become like a child, we cannot enter the kingdom of God. See, Noah and all of us, it wasn't that long ago that he was in heaven. It wasn't that long ago that he was in eternity. So as he entered his body and entered the human condition, his soul, that's what I'm getting, his soul is shining forth. That's the purity, that's the innocence, that's the joy, that's the openness, that's the transparency, that's the bliss, that's the love. That's his soul shining through. Now, what will happen to Noah to a lesser or greater extent is what happened to all of us. Life happens. So we come to this earth with our soul shining forth. And then we get hurt. And we get disappointed. We get wounded. We suffer. People that should have been taking care of us don't. People that should have been protecting us don't. We get hurt. And so what begins to happen, this pure image of the divine, this pure spark of the divine, the soul, the Atman, it begins to sort of recede to the background of our awareness. See, because no one teaches us really how to handle the pain and to stay in contact with our souls. At least most of us weren't taught that. So the soul begins to recede to the background. There's less and less joy, less and less wonder, less and less purity, less and less transparency, less and less phones ringing. Okay? Fewer phones were ringing. Okay? But it doesn't just stay in that void. What happens is we begin to develop this false self, this image of who we think we are. Stories that our parents told us, stories that society told us, stories that the culture told us. You're not athletic, you're not smart, you are athletic, you're good, you're bad. So the image, this image of the divine begins to recede, and what begins to replace it is this pseudo-self, this false identity. And so we end up forgetting who we are and identifying with something that we're not. And then this becomes almost like a shell that covers over this divine spark. And so we lose contact, more or less, with our souls, with this image. And we think, I'm a Craig, I'm a Vicky, I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm good, I'm bad. I'm this, I'm that. I'm limited, I'm mortal. I'm on my own. And we suffer. Spirituality, according to Yogananda, and really all the mystics of the world, it's not about perfecting this image. It's not about perfecting the personality. It's about recovering, remembering who we really are in our essence. Not just in some theological, mental category, but experiencing who we is. Our isness, our suchness. Now, in the first reading, the gospel reading, Jesus kind of gives us a clue as how it happens. He talks about the grain of wheat. Unless the grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains just a grain of wheat. Let's talk about a grain of wheat for a moment. Inside the grain of wheat is this germ of life. Is the seed of life. And then around the grain of wheat is this shell. And how it works is that when the farmer puts the grain of wheat in the ground, two things happen. This germ of life, this essential seed is working to sprout, working to come out, working to break through the shell. So there's pressure from the inside out, but then there's pressure from the outside in. The soil, the dirt, the moisture, the heat, the cold, the change of temperature, all of that process begins to weaken the shell. So what happens is you got this germ of life, the soul, fighting to get out of the shell, and you have all of this outside weakening the shell so that finally the real seed, the real germ of wheat of life can break through and begin to produce. So what Jesus is telling us is this shell that we have built to protect ourselves, this false identity, all of our psychological defenses and games that we play to keep ourselves safe and in control, it has to break away. It has to crack. So think about it this way. You know, sometimes people come to see me in counseling, and they'll say, I'm depressed. And sometimes they are clinically depressed. They need to be treated in a clinical way. But sometimes people come in and they say, I'm depressed, and I hear their story, and I say in some way, shape, or form, you're not depressed. Well, yes, I am. No, you're not. Well, what's going on? That divine seed inside of you is trying to break out. Something is missing because it hasn't broken out yet. You're not broken. You're not mentally ill. Your soul just hasn't broken through yet. And the pain that you're feeling, the discomfort, never quite being at home in the world, it's not because there's something wrong with you, it's your soul trying to break out. Now, what's the pressure or tension coming in from the outside? Before we incarnated, before we embodied, so to speak, our souls had a conversation with God. And we said something like this to God: in this next lifetime, I really want my soul to break out. I want to remember who I am. I want to be self-realized. And God said, okay, well, I'm going to have to create some tension. I'm going to have to create some struggle. I'm going to have to create some problems. I'm going to have to create some challenges for you so that we can break that shell, and so that your real self, your real soul, that divine essence can blossom forth. So I offer this to you. What if every problem you've ever had, what if every struggle, even your failures, what if they are part of the plan that God is using to crack the shell so that your real soul can emerge? I always tell people this, that nervous breakdowns are highly underrated forms of spiritual transformation. I want to read a little poem from Ruby. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they are a crowd of sorrows, who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whatever comes. Not just the good, for whatever comes. Because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. I want to make this very practical. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. I want to get back to the soul. All the struggles that are in our culture and society now, they are visitors from beyond. God is trying to crack open our individual collective egos to bring a new level of self-realization to the human race. So welcome them all. All right. So what's our part in this opening of cracking open? Because it doesn't just happen passively. First of all, we have to become aware of, knowledgeable about when it's our soul manifesting and when it's the egoic personality. Really not that hard to tell. The egoic personality is reactive, it's divisive, it's frightened, it sees and experiences itself as being alone, it sees insiders and outsiders, it's angry, it's needy, it's graspy, it's impatient, it's judgmental, it's critical, and dismissive, and shaming. What's the soul look like? It's peaceful, it's calm, it's steady, it's strong, it's compassionate, it's wisdom, it's grace, it's courage, it is forbearance, it is endurance. So the first step, don't fall asleep at the wheel of your life. Stay awake, stay aware. Not to analyze yourself, but just to be aware what is dominating at this moment. Is it my soul? Is it cracking through? Or is it my egoic self? Stay awake and aware and watchful. And be aware. Secondly, you wouldn't be here. We all have had moments in this room, at least, where our soul's broken through. Have you had a moment when you thought you should have been angry with somebody and somehow you just forgave them? Or you're in over your head and somehow some wisdom bubbled up and you knew how to handle yourself? Or you should have been angry and you reacted calmly? Should have been fearful and you had courage? Should have been in despair and you had hope? Those are all moments when the soul is breaking through. Our job is to recognize them and to nurture them. So let me make this very practical. I'll go back to, again, my grandson Noah. What do I see in him? Purity, innocence, openness, transparency. When he's sad, he cries. When he's happy, he smiles and giggles. He's exploring the world with a sense of wonder. Every day we wake up, I'm suggesting we say this to ourselves. And we pray, God, help me to be a little bit more innocent than I was yesterday. Help me to be a little bit more pure of spirit than I was yesterday. Help me to recover my sense of wonder of how the world operates and how creation is so wondrous. Help me to be joyful. Like when I was a kid, I laughed all the time. Teach me to laugh again. I'm committing to laughing. I'm committing to smiling. I'm committing to being transparent. I'm committing to being vulnerable. Every day, pray for those virtues. Nurture them. Decide to be them. And then they grow. Let me say it this way. It's a very important point. The soul is not something we grasp. It's not something we hang on to. You can't analyze yourself into your soul. You can't theologize yourself into your soul. It's not a thing. It's a point of pure consciousness. It's a point of God consciousness. It's an experience. It's an awareness. So what we do is that as those experiences begin to bubble up, we learn to surrender to them, to give in to joy, to give in to love, to give in to silence, to give in to peace. And what happens over a period of time is we do all these things and this soul consciousness begins to emerge, and at first it's sitting alongside the ego consciousness, and there's this war going back and forth. But then if we stay with it, this goes more and more to the periphery, and this becomes more center. So it's not something that we create or make happen. It's something we yield to. Yield to your highest self. Yield to your most noblest instincts. Yield to the urge to love and to give and to be generous and to be honest and to be transparent. Let it take you over. It's scary at first in terms of the egoic self, because the egoic self says, wait a minute, if I just yield, if we just let go to this, I'm not going to be around much anymore. That's what Jesus was talking about. Lest a grain of wheat falls on the ground and dies, this can't happen. So there are going to be scary moments like, who am I anymore? If I can't be angry all the time, who am I? If I can't feel sorry for myself, who am I? We got to trust and let go and surrender to this emerging consciousness. And I guarantee you, the more we do that, the more this emerging consciousness, this soul consciousness, becomes centered. The personality doesn't disappear altogether, it just then becomes an instrument through which the soul works. A couple other things. You know what I'm going to say is silence. See, the egoic personality runs on adrenaline and nonsense. Okay? Those are the two things it runs on. Adrenaline and nonsense. All the crazy thoughts. All the judgments. All the interpretations. All the stories. That's what feeds the egoic self. It's the lifeblood of the egoic self, are all of our distorted stories. Well, you can't have a story and have silence at the same time. The more we rest in the silence, the more the stories kind of dry up. They shrivel. And they lose their grasp on us. That's why you can't get to the soul. It won't emerge if there isn't silence in our life. I think I shared this story last week, but it's perfect for this context. I was with a woman that I consider to be a saint. I did tell the story, but I'll repeat it now that I've begun it. And we were having this wonderful conversation, all spontaneous, and all of a sudden I made a criticism of this public person, and she got very quiet, and I said, what's wrong? And she said, you were being critical. I said, no, I was telling the truth. And she said, was it motivated by love? No. Well, one way to sort of starve the ego is think before you speak. Better yet, pray before you speak. Is this coming from my soul? Or is this coming from my ego? Is it going to bless or will it curse? Prayer and silence starve the ego of its stories. The last thing, very, very important, maybe the most important. Keep your mind and your heart, not once in a while. Keep them on the Guru. Why do I say that in this context? Whether we're talking about Jesus, Yogananda, the Blessed Mother, Krishna, what they are ultimately doing is they are mirroring who we are to us. You never heard Jesus say, I'm special and you're not. You never heard Jesus say, I got it and you don't. In fact, after he died, first person he appeared to in his resurrection was Mary Magdalene, and he said these beautiful words to her. He said, Mary, go tell them that I've risen. And I'm going to my Father and your Father, my God and your God. So the guru is a mirror that reflects back to us our own potential. The guru is a mirror who tells us who we are, tells us what we're capable of. You know the adage that we talk about in yoga all the time, that we become what we view, we become what we put our minds on, we become what we put our hearts on. The more we look and love the image of the guru, the more we read their words, the more we are faithful to them, the more we cultivate their consciousness. We don't become little puppets. What they do for us, that breaks that shell open, and we begin to see and experience who we are in the eyes of the guru. So keep the eye of your soul and your heart, keep it on God and Christ and Guru all the time. Read their words, let them soak in. That brings that germ into fruition in our lives. Mother Teresa said, don't imitate Christ, be Christ. Don't imitate Christ, be Christ. The guru, we become the guru in the guise of our own personality. So I'm going to close with the words of Yogananda that I read at the beginning. I want you to hear them through the lens of everything I talked about tonight. Behind the light of every little ball is a great dynamic current. So it is with every human being. God made every person in his image and gave each one freedom. We're like God. The possibilities of this world are limitless. The potential progress of man is limitless. Do not look on yourself as a weak mortal. Incredible amounts of energy are hidden in your brain, enough in a gram of flesh to run the city of Chicago for 2 days. And you say you're tired. As souls, we are reflections of God. When by meditation techniques we withdraw restless thoughts from the lake of the mind, we behold our soul, a perfect reflection of spirit, and realize that the soul and God are one. You're not a human being having a spiritual experience. You are a spiritual being having a human experience. Each one of us, in some unique way, we're all God.